Autonomous AI agents on Azure OpenAI, 5 SMB workflow wins. Welcome back. Today's topic is autonomous AI agents on Azure OpenAI, 5 SMB workflow wins. We'll cover what you actually need to know about autonomous AI agents Azure OpenAI Service SMB business automation. Now, let's talk about what are autonomous AI agents and how do they work with Azure OpenAI. An autonomous AI agent is a software process that perceives inputs, reasons over them using a language model, and takes actions, often in a loop, without requiring a human to approve each step. Unlike a chatbot that waits for a question and returns an answer, an agent has access to tools, APIs, databases, file systems, and external services. Ask it to process the invoices in this SharePoint folder and it will open files, extract line items, cross-reference vendor records, flag discrepancies, and post results to your ERP, all without a human in the middle. Azure OpenAI Service provides the GPT-4o and o3 mini models that power the reasoning layer. Azure AI search handles retrieval so the agent can look things up in your actual business data rather than guessing. Azure functions or Logic Apps execute the resulting actions. Together, these form what Microsoft calls an agentic architecture. Next up, moving on to the Azure Services SMB AI agent automation actually needs. A lot of small businesses looking at Azure AI get overwhelmed by the service catalog. Here is what a real SMB agent stack looks like, without the enterprise extras. You probably don't need Azure Machine Learning, Azure Databricks, or a custom vector database on day one. Azure AI search handles most SMB scale retrieval needs cleanly. Skip Kubernetes unless you're running dozens of concurrent agent instances. Start simple, then extend the stack as you understand your actual load and usage patterns. Now, next up, Win 1, Automated Customer Onboarding with Azure AI Agents. Customer onboarding is one of the highest ROI targets for autonomous AI agents in an SMB context. The workflow is repetitive, document-heavy, and the cost of errors shows up directly in customer satisfaction scores. A typical agent-powered onboarding flow. This kind of setup typically cuts manual onboarding time by 60 to 70% for businesses handling 50 or more onboardings per month. For fintech SMBs with KYC requirements, the KYC Verification Automation Guide for Azure covers the specific document processing architecture, and an Azure OpenAI agent layer fits naturally on top of it. Now, next up, Win 2, Accounts Payable and Azure OpenAI Agent Invoice Processing. Manual invoice processing costs $15 to $40 per invoice when you factor in staff time, according to benchmarks from the Institute of Finance and Management. Automated processing via Azure AI agents brings that figure down to $2 to $5 per invoice at typical SMB volumes. The agent workflow. The key integration point is your ERP. Dynamics 365 Business Central connects to Azure services relatively cleanly. QuickBooks or legacy systems typically need an Azure function to handle data translation. Getting the integration architecture right at the start saves significant rework later, which is why a proper solution design phase is worth the upfront time. Now, let's talk about Win 3, Customer Support Triage and Response Drafting. Most SMB support teams handle a mix of repetitive questions and complex issues that genuinely need human judgment. An Azure OpenAI agent can handle the first category completely and prepare draft responses for the second, so your team spends time on real problems instead of copying stock answers. This goes beyond a basic FAQ chatbot. The agent can. One important guardrail: customer-facing agents that can take direct actions need tight constraints. We recommend a propose, don't act pattern for at least the first 60 days, where the agent drafts what it would do and a human approves. Only remove the review step once you've validated accuracy against a meaningful sample size. Next up, moving on to Win 4, Sales Pipeline and CRM Data Enrichment. Sales teams at SMBs often lose hours each week to data hygiene, updating contact records, logging call notes, researching prospects before outreach. An Azure OpenAI agent running in the background handles most of this automatically. Practical implementations that work well. Power Automate for SMBs handles the trigger and action layer well here, with Azure OpenAI doing the language processing. If you're already in the Microsoft ecosystem, Dataverse connectors make this relatively fast to wire up. Next up, now, Win 5, Compliance Reporting and Audit Trail Automation with Azure AI. For SMBs in regulated industries, compliance reporting consumes a disproportionate amount of time relative to the actual risk being managed. The data usually exists in your systems already. The problem is extracting, formatting, and submitting it correctly and on time. An Azure OpenAI agent automates the assembly of routine compliance reports by. For banks and financial institutions, this fits directly into AML and KYC workflows. The Digital Workflow Automation Guide for banking covers the broader architecture, and an Azure OpenAI agent layer adds the reasoning and report generation on top. Next up, let's talk about what Azure AI agent automation actually costs for an SMB. This is the question everyone asks and most posts dodge. Here is a realistic monthly infrastructure breakdown for a small business running 2 or 3 of the workflows above. Development cost is the bigger variable. A proper agent implementation with integrations, testing, and guardrails typically takes 6 to 12 weeks. Budget $15,000 to $40,000 for initial development depending on complexity and integration depth. Off-the-shelf Copilot Studio solutions cost less to build but offer less control over behavior, data routing, and cost. For keeping infrastructure spend in check, the tactics in our Azure Cost Optimization Guide apply directly. Use consumption-based pricing where possible, set spending alerts before you deploy anything, and start with GPT-4o Mini for classification and extraction tasks that don't need the full model. The cost difference between GPT-4o and GPT-4o Mini is roughly 15x per token. Next up, moving on to getting started without a dedicated DevOps team. The honest answer, most SMBs can start without a full DevOps function, but you need at least one person who is comfortable with Azure, whether in-house or through a consulting partner. A practical starting path. Before you start building, understanding Power Platform licensing prevents billing surprises later. Some Azure OpenAI connectors and Power Automate require premium licenses, and it's better to know that before you've committed to an architecture. Next up, now, conclusion. Autonomous AI agents on Azure OpenAI Service give SMBs a real path to business automation that was previously out of reach without a large engineering team. The 5 workflow wins above share a common pattern: repetitive, data-heavy tasks where the cost of errors is high and human time is the bottleneck. The technology is ready. The real variables are getting the architecture right, starting with clean data, and building human review steps that make the system trustworthy over time. SMBs that prove out one workflow before expanding consistently get better results than those trying to automate everything at once. If you want to map out which Azure AI agent use case fits your specific operations, reach out to our team for a free discovery session.